You're good.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Pinelands Regional Monthly Board of Education meeting. I would like to start off with a pledge of allegiance, please. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. Oh, I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty, and justice for all.
for all. Thank you. Mr. Brown, could we have another roll call, and then we will go into approval of the agenda for the
Yes,
public?
yes, sir. Mrs. McVeigh.
Here.
Mr. Dalio.
Here.
Mr. Rossetti.
Here.
Mr. Williams.
Here.
Ms. Chambers.
Here.
Ms. Paklakua.
Here, participating remotely.
Thank you. Ms. Palladino.
I'm here.
Ms. Sanadel.
Yes.
And Mr. Bartlett.
Here.
All members are present.
We have a motion for approval of the agenda.
Motion.
Second. Karen?
All right, any questions? All in favor of approving the agenda as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say nay. That motion carries.
Under number C, approval of the minutes. We have a motion for approval of the minutes from the March 16th executive session and regular session.
Motion?
All in favor of approving the minutes presented on tonight's agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say nay. Motion carries.
Report of the superintendent, Dr. McCauley.
All right, thank you, Mr. Williams. I do have a few items for tonight's update. On April 29th, this Thursday, we are pleased to be providing a vaccine to our staff in both Pinelands Regional and Little Lake Harbor, and students 16 years of age or older with parent consent. So we're going to have that very convenient for anyone that would take advantage of that. We're asking parents whose students are eligible to come in person to please start sending your students in person. We've had about 300 and so students coming to the high school when we have about 1,000 that can be there. So please start sending them in person if you can. I was pleased to be on a Zoom meeting for the Road Forward, including superintendents from all over New Jersey and members of the Department of Education. We were putting together information for a self-assessment checklist that all school districts will have pertaining to the reopening of school in September. I will be continuing work with that committee, very interesting and great perspective from around the state. Our junior prom will take place this Friday. We're pleased to have that opportunity for our students. We recently went through a QSAC review, and although it is not finalized yet, we did get initial results. And I am pleased to announce in the 5 areas for district performance review, thanks to Ms. Frasca and her team. For the first time ever, we are a high-performing district. We do not have to go through the district in need of improvement status and then get the high-performing and the interim review. It was done the first time around, so in instruction and program, fiscal management, personnel governance, and operations, all perfect. So thank you again to Ms. Frasca and her team. Our sports teams are amazing, and I do have some highlights. Thank you, Mr. Sunderman. The girls volleyball won the NJSIAA South Jersey Group 2 Sectional Championship. They are amazing. Congratulations. 4 of our wrestlers qualified for the NJSIAA Super Regions. Josiah Hart as an alternate, Mason Levio placed 6th, Gavin Stewart and Mateo Mania participated in the tournament. And then lastly for athletics, our golfer Grace Clemens won the girls Ocean County tournament and placed 8th in the short conference. Congratulations. Amazing job. We will be beginning to start our summer programs. You'll see on tonight's agenda a lot of approvals for job descriptions. We are happy that we got some ESSER 2 funds and we can provide additional support to our students in the summer. And then lastly, Mr. Henderson and his team have created a new program that we're really happy about. He went around today to all the senior communities announcing it to them. We have our seniors helping seniors. So our seniors in high school are going to be helping some of our senior communities with technology. So whether that's how to Zoom, how to send an email, how to set up your phone, whatever the case may be. So they're going to get some volunteer hours, and it's nice to have that connection between our high school. So he has a little flyer if you want to see it. He did go out to the communities today, and we're going to have seniors helping seniors. So
I'd love that.
Did he go out to the various homes?
he went to
Communities,
like the clubhouses
Yeah,
today
the
and dropped off
clubhouses.
all of the
Oh, okay.
flyers. Yeah, so we're hoping to get some seniors to come in with our seniors and get some support on that.
Well, most of their clubhouses are still, so
Mhm.
definitely. And everyone, contact your.
Yeah, it'd be awesome too. So that the contact on it would be Mr. Henderson, but our seniors are going to be helping seniors. So we're really excited about that. And I'll give you an update on that after it occurs. And that is what I have for my update tonight.
Thank
you.
They have the link?
Hello?
Yes.
Yep, we hear you.
Oh, do we have a presentation from Holman and Frenier?
Yeah, we do. I just want to let the board know that John Zim from Holman Frenier was intended to give this presentation in person this evening, but unfortunately had a death in the family and he's unable to attend. But he was kind enough today to record the Zoom of the presentation so that we could view it tonight. So when the tech team is ready, we'll play the presentation from John Zim from Holman Frenier.
Very good. Till that's ready, want to start with, oh, there we go.
Good to go.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name is John Zim. I'm a director with Holman Frenier Allison in the Advisory Services Department, and I was engaged to perform a shared service agreement assessment for 8 in-scope employees shared between the Pinelands Regional School District and the Little Egg Harbor School District. Before I begin, I'd like to first apologize. I had something unexpected come up that I do unfortunately need to attend. So I'm sorry I cannot be there in person or live via Zoom, but I do thank you for your understanding. I spoke with Nick Brown. I'm sure between he and John Yates, any questions that you may have can be addressed by the two of them. However, if there are any questions that are specific to me, Nick will be providing me with those questions and I will respond to them in a timely manner. So again, thank you for the understanding. Without further ado, I'm going to begin my presentation. So first, I'm going to go through an executive summary report. And this report is going to detail the key findings from the shared service agreement assessment. I'm also going to go through the financial model that was built for each of the 8 in-scope shared service employees. And I'm going to go through the superintendent's financial model to give you a better understanding of how the cost savings that were identified for both the Little Egg Harbor School District and the Pinelands Regional School District were ascertained. So without further ado, I'm going to present my screen. I'm going to show you the executive summary report. We'll go through that. We'll go through the financial model. I'll go through the methodology that was used to arrive at these figures, and then I'll close my presentation. And any questions that are posed to me specifically, I will address thereafter. I return tomorrow and speak with Nick Brown. So I'm going to share my screen here. All right. Okay. So here we have the Pinelands Regional School District and Little Egg Harbor School District Shared Service Agreement Assessment. This is the executive summary report. So I'm going to scroll to the first page here, and we're going to start with the project overview. Now, I'm actually going to read this word for word. It really sets the stage for the rest of the report, the methodology that was used to build the financial models, and it's going to introduce the financial model that I'm going to pull up in a few minutes to go through with you guys. So Let's start here. The Pinelands Regional School District, hereinafter PRSD, and the Little Lake Harbor School District, hereinafter LEH, are engaged in a collection of shared service agreements whereby LEH outsources the services of its employees to PRSD for an agreed upon fee. The purpose of the engagement for which this report details was to examine the financial savings or cost to each respective district with the agreements in place and with the discontinuation of the agreements. The fiscal impact of the shared service agreement on each district was analyzed for the following employees: Dr. Melissa McCauley, Superintendent; Nicholas Brown, Business Administrator; Jonathan Yates, Assistant Business Administrator; Marissa Elwood, Special Education Supervisor; Dr. Michelle Fontana, Physical Therapist; Bruce Stranahan, Nighttime Custodian Supervisor; John Baronato, Math and Science Supervisor; and Aaron Lichtenwarner, Director of Special Services. To ascertain the fiscal impact on each district, the key data sets below were retrieved, examined, and leveraged to develop a financial model for each of the in-scope employees. In addition, a comprehensive series of working sessions spanning 2 months was executed by the third-party CPA firm, Holman Freddie Allison, that's my firm, and the shared business administrator and assistant business administrator. So this was a highly collaborative effort. We, myself, Nicholas Brown, Jonathan Yates, we spent several hours via Zoom going through the creation of these financial models. And we were stress testing the assumptions that I made. We were ensuring that both the payroll figures and non-payroll figures that were attached to each of these 8 in-scope shared service agreement employees were true, were corroborated by payroll data sets backing up the figures and non-payroll data sets like purchase orders backing up the non-payroll related expenditures associated with each of these shared service agreement employees in their role as this shared service personnel. And we went through the executive summary to make sure that the cost savings that we identified to be realized for both the Little Lake Harbor School District and the Pinelands Regional School District was true and justifiable. So to Nick Brown and John Yates, I say thank you. It was great working with both of them. And I could not have produced a report with this level of detail and that was this comprehensive without their buy-in and without their efforts. So thanks to you both. So to build these financial models, as I had mentioned, the following data sets were used. So the Little Lake Harbor Employment Agreement and Shared Service Agreement. This started with an analysis of these contracts. So these are all Little Lake Harbor employees, right? So I need to analyze the employment agreement for each of them and pull out the financial related items within that employment agreement to identify the cost to Little Lake Harbor to have this individual on the payroll. Same rings true for the shared service agreement. So what is contractually binding between Little Lake Harbor and Pinelands Regional from a financial perspective to actually have this shared service in place? What is Pinelands Regional paying Little Lake Harbor for the outsourcing of this individual? What payroll-related and non-payroll related costs are shared outside of any fixed fee that has been agreed upon between the 2 districts? This sets the stage for the whole cost savings that I brought up before between the 2 districts, right? It's really, what's the cost in its current state? So what is Little Lake Harbor's cost net? So after all the outflow of cash that it has for that employee being on its payroll versus what comes in from Pinelands Regional for having this agreement in place, what's the net cost there? That's the current state. And if the shared service agreement were to discontinue and that, let's say, inflow from Pinelands Regional were no longer in place, the delta would be the cost savings to Little Lake Harbor by having that agreement. Same for Pinelands Regional. So what is the current state cost to Pinelands Regional for having a shared BA? Right, what's the outflow of cash as it stands today to Pinelands Regional for that shared service? Versus if that shared service were to discontinue and the BA had to be brought on internally, what would that cost be, right? And if there is a higher cost to bring in that BA internally versus what is the current outflow, that would be the cost savings to Pinelands Regional. So that was done for each of the 8 in-scope employees. Now, where are we getting the information? Well, for payroll, we're looking at payroll registers, looking at health benefits cost documents, looking at other fringe benefits, right? So, vacation buybacks, disability, we're looking at the health benefits that are employer paid health benefits. So we're trying to figure out what the district's cost is from a payroll perspective. Now, on the non-payroll side, we need to see what non-payroll related items are picked up in that particular employee's shared service role. So to back up that information, we're looking at purchase orders, right? Now we go ahead to Chapter 44, Health Benefits Employee Contribution Rates. So really what this is about is if we were to bring on some of these employees internally on the Pinelands Regional side, what would be the Chapter 44 Health Benefits Employee Contribution, right, based off of their salary that we're assuming. And as a result, once we know what the total health benefits cost is and what the employee's contribution is, the delta would be the employer cost. And this is giving us some payroll figures. If the shared service agreement were to discontinue, Pinelands Regional were to bring them on internally, and this would be a payroll related cost outside of wages for that district. So we look at that. PRSD administrator salary listing and salary replacement cost data. Well, we need to know if we were to bring on a BA internally, what would the cost of that BA be today on the Pinelands Regional side? So we looked at previous role gross wages, and then we essentially would grade them up to what its current day cost would be. And this wasn't for every shared service employee of the 8, but for some we would do this, and all the assumptions that were made to arrive at the figures within the financial models. And you're going to see again the superintendent's financial model in a minute. All of the findings, all the assumptions rather that were used are documented, and you can read how the fiscal figures were arrived at. And then ad hoc financial data. So for example, the physical therapist hourly PRSD log, that particular agreement is on an hourly basis. So the hours expended by the physical therapist at Pinelands Regional is the cost to Pinelands Regional to have that shared service in place. So I couldn't just do a broad stroke. I would have to look at what the true backup data is for both payroll and non-payroll for both districts. All right. Without further ado, let's pull up the financial model for the superintendent. So each model is structured in the exact same fashion. And I'm not going to go through the particulars of the model. I'm just going to go through the overall structure. As I mentioned previously, the figures are backed up by either a note or a schedule. All of that is contained within the Excel documents for each of the 8 shared service employees. So right now we're looking at the Little Lake Harbor side of the house. Okay, so Little Lake Harbor cost with the agreement in place, Little Lake Harbor cost without the agreement in place. So if the shared service agreement were to discontinue, what would the cost of the superintendent be? If the shared service agreement were to stay in place, which is current state, what is the cost to Little Lake Harbor? So we have a payroll box. So we're looking at the total payroll cost, looking at base pay, we're looking at fringe benefits here, we're looking at merit bonuses. So these are other payroll related expenditures that are presently incurred. Just as a comment, you'll see a Pinelands Regional portion here. This is included in this box, but this is not picked up in the total payroll cost for Little Lake Harbor, being that Little Lake Harbor is not actually paying this amount. This is a Pinelands Regional cost, so that is accounted for, and you will see this in the notes. And then we have non-payroll related expenditures. So what are the non-payroll related costs that are currently incurred? And then we have total cost, which is the summation of payroll and non-payroll. And we have cash inflow. So what is the cash inflow to Little Lake Harbor with this agreement in place? In this particular agreement, it's going to be 50% of the payroll and non-payroll costs. So 50% of the total cost. But again, for the superintendent, we're not getting the inflow from the Pinelands Regional merit bonus. This is paid purely by Pinelands Regional. That's accounted for. But again, that's not the point of this exercise. I'm just showing you that we have the total cash outflow here to Little Lake Harbor. We have the inflow here to Little Lake Harbor from Pinelands Regional. And here we have the net cost with the agreement in place. So it's our total cost less our cash inflow. This is the net cost. We can see it's 50%, right? Now, going over to the right, we have the Little Lake Harbor cost without the agreement. Same exact boxes. So here's the payroll cost if the shared service agreement were to discontinue. Here are the non-payroll costs if the shared service agreement were to discontinue. Okay, then we have our total, same formula, our non-payroll plus our payroll. All right. And then down here, we have the cash inflow without the agreement. So you'll see this is going to be pretty consistent, right? If the agreement were to discontinue, there's not going to be any cash inflow from Pinelands Regional to Little Lake Harbor. So we see it's zeroed out here. And then again, same as on our left side here, we have the net cost without the shared service agreement. So that's our total cost, less our cash inflow, which is zero because there's no agreement. And this would be our total net cost of the superintendent if the shared service agreement were to discontinue. And this is Little Lake Harbor's cost. So this down here, and this is the same for every model, we have our savings or our cost to have the agreement in place. So here is the total net cost without the agreement, our $222,000, right? We have that here. Here's our cost with the agreement, $128,000, and then here's our savings. All right, so that's the net savings we have by having this shared service agreement in place. Because if we didn't have this agreement, then we would have to incur a total cost of $222,000 as Little Lake Harbor. I'm not going to go through it in the same fashion, but the superintendent, this is what you're looking at on the Pinelands Regional side, same model design. So this is the Pinelands Regional cost with the agreement in place. This is the Pinelands Regional cost without the agreement in place. You'll see a lot of zeros here. It's not on Pinelands Regional payroll, right? So the cost that you're seeing is going to get picked up in this other expenditures box. This is the cash outflow from Pinelands Regional to Little Lake Harbor to have this agreement in place. This is consistent with the inflow that we saw before on the Little Lake Harbor model side. But just to skip ahead here, we have our total expenses, right? Both with the agreement, without. We have our inflow, both with the agreement and without. We have our net cost, both with the agreement here and without the agreement. And then we have our total savings. So we have our total cost without the agreement, less our total cost with the agreement. That gets us to our net savings. And then all these other tabs here are the notes that are going over the assumptions that were made. And then we have other schedules that provide further backup to arrive at the figures that you're seeing in these models. Okay, I'm going to go back now to the executive summary. So that was done for all 8 of the in-scope employees that you're seeing up here. So what does this all mean? Okay, here is your summary, right? So the total savings for Pinelands Regional on an annualized basis to have these shared service agreements in place, we see by this yellow bar, is $624,469. So that's the total annualized savings for all 8 in-scope shared service agreement employees by having these shared service agreements in place. The Little Lake Harbor annual savings by having the agreement in place for each of these 8 in-scope employees is $313,875. Now, clearly, we see that there's a delta. This is not uncommon. I mean, the recipient of the outsourced services is almost always going to realize a greater savings. That's just the nature of shared service agreements. So that's not uncommon, seeing a delta between the 2 bars like you see here. With that being said, you'll see on the next page, there are some opportunities, particularly where the shared BA-ABA is concerned, to improve the equity of the agreements, particularly for those 2 roles. And we'll see that in a minute. But I just want to sort of illustrate how each district is experiencing these savings today. Sometimes it's hard to wrap your head around because you're not actually seeing a check for this money, right? But here is how it would work. And I just described this paragraph here when I was reviewing the table. So I'm going to skip ahead. This is a hypothetical example. These are not real figures. But what I'm looking at here is the Pinelands Regional School District hypothetical example. So this is with the shared service agreement in place. So let's just assume that total revenue was $1.2 million and total expenditures were $1 million. Well, then we're going to have an excess to fund balance of $200,000, right? 1.2 million revenue, 1 million expenditures. We have a excess of 200K that's going to our fund balance, to our bottom line. Now, let's say the shared service agreement were to discontinue and we still have 1.2 million revenue, where our total expenditures are now 1,624,469 rather than our 1 million with the shared service agreement in place. Well, what happened here? Well, again, this is the savings, right? $624,469. So we would incur an additional $624,469 as Pinelands Regional by having these shared service agreements discontinue, because we'd now have to bring these employees in-house. And again, you'll see through each of the models that we're not assuming a one-to-one ratio for all employees by bringing someone internally. So the ABA is a key example, right? We're actually assuming a replacement cost of an average bookkeeper. If the ABA were to be brought on internally, it wouldn't necessarily be an ABA any longer. I spoke with Nick Brown and John Yates, and we decided that it would be more of a bookkeeper-esque role to Pinelands Regional to bring that particular employee in, and that was accounted for in this $624,469 figure. So 1.2 million revenue, 1.624 million expenses now, we would have a reduction in fund balance, a loss of $424,469. So we would be depleting our fund balance in this example. Going quickly through Little Lake Harbor here, 1.2 million revenue, 1 million revenue, we have an excess to fund balance of 200K with the shared service agreements in place. Now, again, having 1.2 million revenue, our total expenditures would be 1,313,875. Why? Well, that's the savings right now. So if the shared service agreement was to discontinue for each of these in-scope employees, Little Lake Harbor would incur an additional 314K. And as a result, rather than having an excess to fund balance of 200K, it would be depleting its fund balance on an annualized basis of $114,000. So this is where the savings is realized, okay? Now let's skip ahead here. This is a breakdown per employee. So what we see here is the shared service roles, right? Our BA, ABA services, special ed supervisor services, physical therapist, nighttime custodian supervisor, math and science supervisor, director of special services, and superintendent. Okay. So we see that there's a lack of equity, particularly between the BA and ABA. Now we do see a gap between the two bars, right? Blue being Little Lake Harbor, yellow being Pinelands Regional. We do see a gap here for a special education supervisor and math and science supervisor. But as Nick and John, I'm sure they can pause this and explain, but that distribution makes a bit more sense, being that it's not a, let's say, 50-50 split in services between the two districts, right? So, you know, you are going to have a bit of a gap there as a result. That's not to say that more equity can't be reached, but really the one to focus on here in our eyes is the BA-ABA services, because as you guys I'm sure know, it's a pretty even split between the two districts for both Nick Brown and John Yates services there. And then down here, we'll take a look, and this is just a table that is presenting the data there. So here you have the shared service employees, you have the positions, just like we saw in this diagram above. Then we have our savings with the agreement. For Little Lake Harbor, we have the savings with the agreement for Pinelands Regional, and this is the delta by taking the Little Lake Harbor savings less the Pinelands Regional savings, and this is where we're sort of seeing that delta of 310,594. So almost 2x savings here, where we have 2 times the savings of Pinelands Regional as we do to Little Lake. Again, having a distribution like that is not necessarily uncommon as the recipient district realizing a greater savings, but there are agreements that can be restructured in a way to make it a bit more equitable between Little Lake Harbor and Pinelands Regional. And it would be my advisement to restructure, at least at a start, the BA-ABA services and start to investigate the shared service agreements that are currently in place between Nick Brown and John Yates to see if we can just reach a more equitable split between the two districts where that is concerned. And then the notes here, this is the financial model that it goes through, that goes through these savings. And I'm sure John and Nick will explain it a bit more detail, but this does not mean it's a one-shot deal to say next year there needs to be a restructuring of $150,000 to make it a one-to-one ratio in terms of savings. It doesn't work like that. It wouldn't be structured in that, belabor the point, but target a particularly, let's say, a particular agreement that has the best opportunity for equity to be reached again, being the BAABA, and then develop a program where we start to, on a cadence, reach that equity financially. And this little paragraph down here essentially explains what I just did in less detail, but it summarizes my point there. We see here, while each district experiences a cost savings in connection with the shared service agreements, the potential for increased equity and cost savings between the districts is present. I'm going to scroll up here just for Nick and John in case they wanted to pause it. I know that we spent quite a bit of time in the other meetings on this table. But without further ado, I'm going to stop my screen share here. I'd like to thank you guys again for the opportunity to work in this engagement. It was a pleasure. Again, I'm sorry that I could not be there live, but if you have any questions for me, please communicate them to either Nick Brown or John Yates. They will share them with me, and I will address them in a timely manner. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, do you want to move on to your public budget presentation at this
Yeah.
time?
If I could just add for the benefit of the committee, I just want you to be aware that John Zim did come in and spend probably 45 minutes with the budget committee going over that as well and answered all of our questions. So had shared that with us. So
Nick, can you share this presentation to the board so we can see it a little better? I mean, I was able to enlarge it somewhat.
Yep.
But can this be shared with us?
And I'll share the copy of the executive summary, the
Okay,
PDF
great.
version of that.
Super.
The members of the Budget and Finance Committee were given that before we reviewed it in the
Okay.
meeting together.
All right.
So-
Thank you.
So that's a lot more than 400,000.
Karen also stated in the committee that she brought up another thing that's not part of this, is that we also save money with the shared services with the NutriServe or other savings too. He focused on that, but she brought that up and it was actually really important. So the committee talked about that too. There are other savings.
Yeah, and the purpose of this scope was to look at the employees who are shared, not necessarily the departments or the entire departmental services like IT or food service, which we also share. But it's also, we want to be able to inform decisions for the board on how these agreements should be structured going forward, right? So if that meant, like John's suggestion, that we should charge Little Egg should charge Pinelands a little bit more for the services provided by Mr. Yates, because Mr. Yates is, basically split 50-50. Maybe that's something we'll address. And we discussed that in committee. No recommendation has come out of committee yet, but if there is, we'll get that to the board prior to the next meeting.
And that's what my question's about. So what is it because it's uneven and it seems like, or is the work uneven? So they're just paying, like, because we couldn't see it. So I couldn't tell are they paying that much more for Mr. Yates? Is that what we're saying?
No, Mr. Yates is his is a little unique because remember, we have money that comes from Bass River, right? That they pay $25,000 a year for services. John gets 19 of that. So the net cost to Pinelands to have John in the role is about $6,000, which is low for the services being provided. So maybe we tweak that agreement and I don't think substantially. I don't think it's not like we're on the other side saying this has got to be a 50-50 split. I think we just want to be clear and transparent about what the economics are. If the board wants to utilize this information to make more informed decisions on how these contracts are structured going forward, I think that's a good starting point for those discussions. And there was a point for the two that also looked disparate in the chart. Those two employees, it was Alyssa and John, they're not split 50-50. That's why you have that sort of spread in the savings. So on those two, I don't think those agreements really need to be addressed. We're really looking at the ones where you got a 50-50 split in time, but a far different split in potential savings to the board.
so Nick, just one clarifying point with the agreement with Bass River. Just how it was phrased. John doesn't actually get those funds. Those helped to fund his salary, right? Those are school district funds that kind of go towards the cost of him. He's not getting
That's
that
correct.
extra.
The compensation to Mr.
Pardon.
Yates to provide services to Pinelands and Bass River is $19,000 a year. The board gets $25,000 from Bass River to have those services provided. So the net benefit to Pinelands is $6,000 savings to have John provide those services. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So what was the final number? 937? That's what I came up with just off the top of my head. It's around there?
Combining them?
Yes. Great job.
To the township.
Yeah,
And
Nick,
again, those are savings just for those 8 individuals, right? If you think of more broadly, we do, from the IT to the food services to others, right? So I'd say overall shared services are in excess of that. But those were clearly quantifiable.
Yep.
and that all goes back to the taxpayers, correct? They're having a savings of that much money, which is incredible.
So what I think it allows us to do here is to be able to offer new programs instead of having to make cuts when we're in a time where we're losing state aid. And as an example, we've added dual enrollment courses, academy courses, a JAGS program, and I'll touch on that in the budget presentation as well.
So it's not a direct refund to the taxpayers then? We're utilizing that for additional programs.
That's correct.
Students.
Remember that the district's total expenses are growing at a pace greater than this. So for this to be any a refund, so to speak, or a check that goes back, they would have to be greater than the overall growth of the district budget year over. All right, so we're going to get in. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just said to me, that's even better to give back to the students. I mean, we would be losing things if not. So I think that's great.
Agree. All right, so I'm going to jump into the 21-22 general fund budget presentation. And for everybody to be aware, here's the members of the Board of Education and the towns that they reside in, that they serve for the Board of Education. Our staff, we have over 280 staff members. You guys see on the agenda every month where there's new additions and subtractions. So this number moves a little bit, but it's north of 280 staff members. And our facilities, this hasn't changed either, but they have been updated and modernized recently with the referendum and ESIP projects that were completed in 2019. It's important to remember, we have almost 400,000 square feet under our roof. That's a tremendous amount of space that we have to maintain and upkeep. And so it's a big part of the budget. We've talked a lot about enrollment, and we were downward trends with a couple of sideways moves recently, but in 2021, we saw an increase of 50 students over the year prior. This is using October 15th ASSA data. And this is substantial because this increase in enrollment is what led to an increase in state aid. So the tentative budget, right? The general fund budget is just over $34 million. And we're starting with the column right there, general fund. Then we get revenues of 12 million. That's state aid and a couple other sources of local revenue. The difference in that is the amount we raise in taxes. So that amount this year is just over $21 million. We have special revenues, which are grants and entitlements, just over $2 million. And we build the grant budget dollar for dollar to match the entitlement. So we don't raise any taxes to support grant programs. And then the last category is our debt service obligations. We talked about the referendum. We had almost $60 million in debt service obligations, or $53 million in debt service obligations. And so that payment this year is $3.58 million. The state of New Jersey kicks in debt service aid of $1.25 million, and the difference is raised in taxes. So the total amount we raise in taxes between general fund budget obligations and debt service obligations is $23.67 million, right? And that's important as we go through and look at this, because we look at this regional allocation and look at that far right column where it talks about the 21-22 share. This comes from the state of New Jersey. It's sent to us in our school aid folder. Those percentages on the right are the percentages of the $26 million that each, or $23 million that each town has to pay. So this regional allocation formula was established when Pinelands Regional formed in 1979. And this is the formula that that dictates the regional allocation on an annual basis. One of the things that's worth noting here is that the share for each of the constituent districts can fluctuate year to year. And so I wanted to highlight that this year, because look at, and I'll use Little Egg as an example. Let's just call that 1% movement. That's 1% of $23 million. So Little Egg in this, because this formula applied 1% more to Little Egg Harbor families, the Little Egg community picks up an extra $230,000 in the budget. And so it works the other way too. The Tuckernan's percentage went down a little over 1. So they shed that from their obligation. And I think one of the reasons, as we'll get into later with the increase in Bass River, is that they're picking up a full percentage point in allocation this year. And so when we look at our revenues, we have our local tax levy, which is, we see, we get state aid, which is just under 12 million, and other revenue, which is, simply put, other revenue is every dollar we get that's not grants, state aid, and tax dollars. That might be if we have interlocal agreements with other schools. We have tuition agreements from other boards of education. If we obsolete some equipment and sell it on gov deals, all of those things get captured into the other category. But it's important to note that we're about 2/3 of our budget is funded by the local tax levy, and about 1/3 comes from state aid. I believe a couple of years ago when we looked at that number, the local tax levy was under 60% of the total budget. And that's the point of S2, is to increase the local fair share from some communities who are losing aid. So our local revenue, here's a snapshot year over, comparing our local revenue from last year to this year. On the local tax levy, that 418,000, that's 2%. You hear people talk about how the tax levy can increase 2%. That is a 2% increase. Bank cap, although the district has over $600,000 in bank cap available to use, through a collaboration with the committee, we determined that we're not going to use that bank cap, and that bank cap will expire this year, and it is not available for use in future years. And so the net difference in local revenue, bottom right corner, is it's up about $466,000. State aid was a little bit of good news for us. We lost aid in previous years under S2. However, this year, and I noted the increase in enrollment, we were a net gainer in state aid. I highlighted extraordinary aid at the bottom for a reason. That number right now is estimated. We get the extraordinary aid allocations in July. So we're budgeting a huge increase over the year prior, but we're confident that we've incurred a significant more of special ed related expenses that would be reimbursable through extraordinary aid. So when we look at our general fund budget, I want to give everybody an idea of how it breaks down on a dollar level. When we're looking at 2021, not next year, but this year, 54% of our tax dollars and our general fund monies go to salaries, 21% to health benefits. So 75% of the budget is salaries and health benefits. And I'm going to touch on health benefits a little bit in the next couple of slides. Purchase services is everything from the software we use to the architects, attorneys, occupational therapists, speech language pathologists, anything that there's a pretty broad category. That's about 10% of the budget. Transportation, that's clear what that is. Supplies or anything that's used in the classroom that's not a purchase service. And the last piece of it, the required maintenance. And that's where we come up with that almost $33 million in total general fund expenditures. So I want to give you an idea on health benefits, because if you look here, it's almost $7 million. It's a huge chunk of the budget, and it's a place we can make a big impact budgetarily in the business office and with the Board of Education. So we look at the census, the enrolled is how many employees that we have that choose each of these plans. And they could choose either the Aetna POS annual plan or POS plan, or the new New Jersey Educators Health Plan. And so this is where our costs are born from. And so a few years ago, the Pinelands Regional School District elected to leave the state health benefits and go into something called the School Health Insurance Fund. And it's really worked out to the board's advantage. The annual increase in the School Health Insurance Fund, so how much our premiums increased over the year prior, over the last 5 years is only 2.2%. The SHIF has 94 New Jersey school districts in it, and you're required to apply. And they'll let you in if your utilization rate is low, meaning you utilize health benefits in a way that is not greater than the amount of premiums that you pay. And so they're selective in who they let in. And that allows them, because they have a high-performing collection of school districts, to keep rates low. The state health benefits plan, as sort of a comparative point, the rates in the state health benefit plan over the last 10 years have increased over 8%, prescription 4.8%. So over the last decade, the state health benefits plans averaged 6.6% increase. So that's almost 3 times the increase that we see in the shift. And so state health has over 200 districts in the state, almost a third of New Jersey public schools, and whoever wants to be in the state health plan is in there. So you have even the districts that don't perform well from a health benefits standpoint are in there, and that sort of performance can drag down the entire group. So I want to give you an illustration of what this, let's say we start with a $5 million spend. Well, in year one, the shift cost is up to 5.1 million, but if we're in state health, it's 5.3. And I'm using, on the shift side, 2.2% annual increase. On the state health side, 6.6% annual increase. Look at the end of 5 years. You're talking about almost $4 million in health benefits costs that the Board of Education for Pinelands has avoided by moving this business to the shift. And I think that's, when you look at this illustration and realize how impactful those dollars are in our budget, it's worth noting the board made a really smart move there, and it's paying off because this money is staying where it needs to be in our classrooms and with our students. And so in addition to health benefits, we've reduced discretionary spending in all departments. I'll use this as an opportunity to say shout out to the admin team who probably got tired of me asking them to tighten things up in the budget process, but they did a great job with it. We talked about the shared services and reviewed the analysis from HFA. But I want to talk a little more about the shared. So in addition to almost $700K in generated savings, these also drive new program creation. We talked about the dual enrollment courses that we offer now, the academies that Ms. Frasca is spearheading, the JAGS program, which has done some really great things the last couple of years. We've also spent a lot of time focusing on combining and modernizing systems. So now the accounting and payroll software is the same one at Little Egg, is the same one at Pinelands, and it's a modern system. We abandoned an outdated one. Our student management system, our IT infrastructure, we're making considerable investments in the infrastructure that runs the school. In addition to that, we've reduced redundancy and cost in multiple departments. We talked a lot about the efficiency of combining the administration of the cafeteria program, the ability to have transportation run for all districts under one roof, our technology, facilities, and admin. Every one of these programs has had some tweaks to help make it run better and less expensively for the district. And I want to just take a moment, because I don't do this enough, to thank all the people that are in the business office and the central office team, because this job is completely impossible to work in 2 and 3 districts without having people like Cindy Barton, Marielle Granary, Kim Wellfield, Rita Taliaferra, Sarah O'Toole, Sue Schilling, Cindy Hoffman, Nick Tallarico, Amanda Miller, Kelly Ramirez, and I misspelled Giovanna's name. I'm sorry, Miss Peters, and Giovanna Peters. These people work tirelessly, and I'm going to take this as a point of pride and say these people are happy at work. They produce high quality work, and I think that's the thing that I'm most proud of in my role now, is that besides that we're driving savings, we have satisfied employees doing a great job on a daily basis, and I hope every branch of government can take that feather in the cap. So now we'll look quickly at the tax levy impact for each of the municipalities. So I'm looking at the middle line that's italicized. Little Egg Harbor, your average assessed home value is just over $200,000. Your regional school tax bill will increase by $45. And most of that is the shift in percentage that comes in the allocation formula we touched on the top. Good news for people in Tuckerton, where the average home value is just north of $215,000. Your regional tax bill would see a decrease of $152 compared to last year. Same story for Eagleswood, where the average assessed home is just under $250,000. They will see a decrease of $96 in their regional school tax this year. And for Bass River, where the average home is just over $215,000, they're going to see an increase of $300 compared to last year. Now, that's substantial, and I want to remember that that's where they picked up a 1 full percentage point of the allocation. they have a smaller net value taxable that gets divided into, a smaller rateable base to divide that into. So the tax impact is felt a little more by everybody. But for the residents of Bass River, I want you to remember, to maybe consider your elementary school tax for the average homeowner went down $500 last year, went down $50 this year. And so the net impact over a 2-year period is negligible. And I don't want to dismiss any increase. We understand, especially in times like this, how much all of this matters. And so that's a summary of how it impacts each of the constituent communities. And a reminder to everybody, tonight we adopt the 2021-22 budget. It then gets sent to the county office, certified for taxes. It'll be on the district's website. The detailed version of the budget will be on the district's website tomorrow. And then somehow already, we will open up the 21-22 budget cycle for purchases from our admin team. So guys, next week, you can start spending your money. So that's all I have. Does anybody have any questions? No? Thank you very much, guys.
Dr. McCauley, a look back.
I am going to stand over here and pull my mask down. I am fully vaccinated. I'm far away from everybody. So I want to make sure that you can hear me clearly and everyone at home can hear me as well. So as Jimmy gets this ready for everyone, entitled A Look Back, as you know, change takes about 3 to 5 years to be effective. I have now been here. This June will be 3 years. So I kind of wanted to highlight some of the things that we've accomplished. I know you heard tonight about shared services, how much money we're saving. You heard about the budget with Mr. Brown. And now I'd like to see, are we getting our bang for the buck? So I'd like to review some of the things that we've accomplished over the almost 3-year period. All right, I'll wait, yep. All right, so day 1, June of 2018, I came into the district as a shared superintendent and walked into a $53 million referendum project. Went to meetings, learned a lot about construction, and played an integral role in that process. So as part of that process, I recall the day I spoke to an employee at Pinelands, and they said to me, oh no, we're gonna have to go on split sessions again. Teachers are gonna lose their jobs, staff members are gonna lose their jobs, what can we do? And this was before I had even started over here as a shared superintendent. So putting our heads together, the plan was derived that all of the students would go to the junior high, and that would be grades 8 through 12. And the 7th grade would be housed in Little Egg Harbor. But for that to happen, Little Egg Harbor schools would have to be reallocated to make room for that 7th grade. We had a problem, we came up with a plan, and we evaluated that plan. Everything worked well, and there were no split sessions for that year. One of the things the Board of Education stressed and asked me time and time again was, please open school on time. Please open in September. The students have been through a lot. We need to open on time. So we worked tirelessly all summer to make sure that happened. I heard things like, it's never going to happen. You're not going to pull this off. Well, the administrative team was amazing. And down to the wire, you can see we pulled in help from our spouses, from our friends, from anyone we possibly could to put furniture together to get everything ready for the students to come back in September. Mr. Henderson ordered this awesome big display for students that said, welcome home Wildcats. And it actually was a huge welcoming. They hadn't been in the building, and we were really excited that we were able to do that for them come September. Then another challenge came. We were hit with the pandemic. We were told that students would not be in school. We'd have to teach virtually. And what were we going to do? How are we going to, at the drop of a dime, deliver effective instruction to our students? So we got together as an admin team of both Little Egg Harbor and Pinelands and worked out numerous solutions, came up with initial plans, other plans, and then plans for those plans. We had over 60 members of the Restart Pandemic team, including board members, community members, and members of other local school districts. We had multiple meetings, and we made changes to that plan as we needed to. All hands were on deck. And what do I mean by that? You can see photos here of many of the administrative team making sandwiches and bagging up lunches. Now, I remember at this time a very disheartening comment that came from someone on social media saying, why are we paying six-figure salaries to make sandwiches? Well, at the time that these photos were taken, this was the need of the community. They needed to eat. Our food service teams were apprehensive about coming into the schools because they were afraid of getting COVID. It was a genuine concern. So what did we do as the admin team? Anything we needed to service the community. So we did. We came in on Sundays. We came in whenever we needed to, and we came up with a plan to feed the community. Not only did we make the bags, make the sandwiches, oftentimes we delivered this right to the door of some of our community members. And I'm really proud of our team for this work. This is highlighting some of the meetings that we had through the midst of all the chaos. We still had volunteers come in. We still did special ed Q&As. Ms. Frasca and I went to different recruiting things for staff members. Sit with the Soup was done. It was a little bit different because it was virtual, but we carried on with everything that we had to service the needs of our students and our community. So, shared superintendent, 2 school districts, how is that working out? I wanted to highlight some of the comments that were made on my evaluations for the first 2 years. So in 2019, as you can see in the center here, on the 6 administrative standards, overall, I scored exemplary in 4 of them. In 2 of them, they were proficient. In 2020, which was last year, all 6 standards were scored exemplary. And as you can see, these are some of the comments that our board members made on those evaluations. Under my leadership, the district is no longer stagnant. A strong leader with a future-focused approach, tireless commitment, consistently communicates with the board. The amount of things the superintendent and her staff are working on and changing is amazing. We are finally entering the 21st century. The CSA has worked hard to move us forward. Dr. McCooley has a clear vision, and during the most difficult times is exemplary. And at the top, Dr. McCooley has demonstrated an exceptional quality of instructional leadership. So all supportive comments from the Board of Education, and I thank you for that. So what has been accomplished over the last almost 3 years? More than I can fit on a slide, but these are some of the highlights I'd like to discuss tonight. I'm not going to go through the list. You can read this yourself. I will send this out to the board as well, and I can put this on the district website. But just some of the things I'd like to point out. We had the vape grant that we got sensors for all the bathrooms. Drug use is down. We hired a on-staff part-time mental health expert to help our staff and community deal with a pandemic. We started dual enrollment programs. We had new AP requirements that students had to take the exam to raise the bar for those courses. We started the junior ROTC, and we're still trying to start that full-time program. We refined the hiring process to ensure that we are hiring the best of the best. We joined CJ Pride, which is Central Jersey Pride, to help with more diverse hiring of our staff members. Our right to know was recently a clean audit. We had a clean audit of our financials for the first time in 9 years. We are a high-performing district as per CUSAC. And you can see many of the other accomplishments we've had since 2018. I'm going to once again go over 2 slides very briefly. We are down administrators. We are doing more with less, and we are doing well with our current team. In 2017, there was a total of 14 full-time administrators. Now, if you count up the full-time plus the shared people, it's less than 12 because some of them are not fully shared, as we discussed earlier tonight. And the proof is in the numbers. With those shared administrative positions, we are saving over $400,000. We've given back money for AP exams to students. Over 101 students were refunded to the tune of over $16,000. 110 exams were paid for by the district for those students that were free and reduced lunch eligible. How are we doing on our test data? Our language arts scores have been rising consistently, and we are well aware that we have improvements to be made in math, and a plan has been made. We hired a very competent, progressive, hardworking, collaborative supervisor to work in the math and science department, and changes have already been made and improvements have already been shown. I often give the superintendent update. This was a sample. We changed their chain of command for the community. Ocean County just reimbursed us $15,000. We have had 4 days in-person learning recently. We talked earlier about vaccines that are available for our staff and our students, and we are currently working on a summer program to supplement some of the issues that we occurred this past year because of the pandemic. When I came to Pinelands, I was told by multiple board members and the community members and some staff members, we really need you to clean up Pinelands. This can be a really great school district as it used to be. So that's not easy. Oftentimes, staff choices have to be made that are in the best interest of this school district. And that's not easy because many of us know them in the community. You may have worked with them. They may be friends of yours. But we have raised the bar for our staff. We are only going to be keeping the best of the best. We tell all non-tenured teachers now it's a 4-year job interview. And if you're not going to show us 110% every day, and you are not the best of the best, we will not keep you at Pinelands. This is how you clean up a district. This is how you raise the expectations and make your school district amazing. Now, are we going to have some concern from that? Yes. There may be arbitrations, there may be mediations, because now we've changed the expectations. This is not the norm that Pinelands has experienced. But this is our expectation. A lot of the times I've heard we need to be on the map, put Pinelands on the map, and not for negative things. We want that for positive things. And there has been so much. This is just a few of those highlights. We've been mentioned by Senator Sweeney about our shared services and the information that we're doing now with the consolidation study. I had multiple podcasts through school boards with Mr. Ray Pinney, and we talked about all the amazing things that's happening at Pinelands and Little Egg Harbor. And then lastly, we were selected as one of the pilot districts for the LGBTQ to give feedback and to work with our teachers and staff on those lessons. And we've also worked with the local religious organizations. We've heard their feedback and we're gonna be working with them this summer as well. So all of this is an attest to our admin team, as well as the support of a very progressive board. So this is my little highlight reel as a thank you to the board for all of your support. And if Jimmy's gonna click on that for me.
Thank you. Mrs. Chambers.
Yes, Dr. McGinley, thank you very much for a very good retreat. It was well received. Activities were great. It was a lot of information. I think it was really important to get together with the administration and work collaboratively as a team. I know we had some fun in our group with the icebreaker routine, although we didn't win. I'm not quite sure how the other team did. I didn't know we were allowed to use tape, but anyway, it was fun. Yeah, it was fun.
But I, in a week, have seen changes that I've never seen before. And I think one of the biggest ones was a sense of camaraderie that has not existed. And that openness and the desire that it's not an administrative staff and a teaching staff and the Board of Education, and we're not enemies. We're gonna work together, and I truly believe that. And I think that, and I think if you really work as a team, we can do great things. So.
Tommy?
I'd like to thank everyone for coming out. I'd like to thank our administration. We have been through a lot the past couple of years here at Pinelands, but I really feel strongly that we are moving as a unit and as a group together with our communities to move this district forward and make us a better place.
Yep.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm thrilled. I think you have an amazing amount of positive energy and you just seem, you're just a dynamo. So I'm thrilled. And I think most of us are very thrilled.
Lastly, I'd like to thank Dr. McCooley, first, for all the initiatives that she has begun here at Pinelands in 2019. She handed and she stated in her district goals some of the things that are coming up. They're great things that are going on. We are moving forward for all students, and I can honestly say that she has done a great job since she's come on board, and I just want to thank you for that. You are, well, I don't know what we would talk about you. Thank you. I'd like
To Dr. McCooley, our admin team, thank you. For the first time in quite a while, and you have to remember I spent a great many years in this district. I am actually optimistic. And I will leave
term, so I would encourage anyone in the community who has children coming up who is interested in moving Pinelands further. We have an excellent superintendent now, and I encourage everyone to consider applying.
Changes,
a lot of movement, so I think it did help. It helped all of us.
Which I congratulate you on changing everybody around. The positions that they wanted that were going to improve them, and within the school. I think that's great.
The opening, this district is moving forward. The bus has left, or the train has left the depot a long time ago. So we're moving forward in 2019, but also in 2022. So.
Administrative staff and Melissa for steering us in a good direction here. Good stuff happening here. Thank you.
The staff, you kicked butt. You worked overtime, long hours. Somehow you managed to get your hands dirty when I know you didn't take any of those courses when you were getting that degree. But you got down there and you did the job, and somehow you managed to keep everything operating relatively smoothly. Obviously, there's always bumps in the road.
The board needs to consider, and I think Melissa is the key in moving these forward as we go. So,
We're not going to ignore the bad things. It's just that life has really changed since Melissa's come on, and you were the force behind that. You and Pat, and basically we sort of all had to catch up,
But I think it's important to also commend the leadership here at Pinelands. Sitting here and doing this job as a volunteer and working with our administrators here is not an easy task. There's so much that goes on. If you listen to Dr. McCooley tonight when she was talking about some of her staff, I wrote the words down she used: amazing, great, and fantastic. That's a sign of a good leader, somebody who rewards their staff and recognizes their staff for their contributions. And I think it's important that we recognize our administrative staff here for everything that they're doing. They take a lot of heat, but there are amazing things going on here at Pinelands, and it has to do with the leadership that we have here. And I think it's important that we don't lose sight of that.
Melissa, I'd like to thank you especially, and all of your administrative staff for the hard work that you put in during this time. I know it's been uncharted territory, so I just wanted to thank you for that.
I just wanted to say thank you to Dr. McCooley and the staff. This remote learning has been going so great. I think Pinelands is doing a phenomenal job with this. And then hopefully back in September, we can have a normal.
Augie, you got something for us?
Yeah, before I keep on cutting out. So I just wanted to, again, thank the administration, Dr. McCooley, Mr. Brown, all your hard work and dedication through this COVID. Greatly appreciate all your hard work in this. That's pretty much all I have.
I would just like to thank Melissa Bell for the agenda video. It was very helpful. And it did remove some of the questions that I had initially on my email. So thank you. It was very helpful.
I'm hoping, what's that song, See You in September? I'm hoping that comes true for all of us. I'd like to thank Dr. McCauley and Nick for everything they do here. It takes an exceptional person to be an effective superintendent, and I would venture to say that she would say she's only as effective as the team she has behind her, and what an amazing team she does have. So thank you to all of you. I know this is nothing that we were prepared to do just 3 months ago, and now you're like that guy that has all the plates in the air spinning, trying to figure out how to keep everything going. So kudos to all of you.
What was already said by some of the board members is that I really want to give a shout out to Mr. Henderson and Dr. McCooley and anyone else that's involved on what they've done and accomplished, because it just kept on changing. But whatever our governor puts down, you have to just roll with it. And those are constant changes. So I really do.
Thank the public for coming out this evening. We love community involvement. I just want to thank all the teachers and administration who are still getting us through this virtual learning. I know firsthand what a struggle it is. So hats off to that. And I'd also like to thank Dr. McCauley and the board for our JROTC program. It's just a beautiful thing to hear.
Yep. But I think it was clear, I think the point is that if we were to have our own superintendent, not shared, it would be much more than $98,000 a year. We can just see what we've paid our superintendents in the past.
And the point is that she's done a lot more, which is to create this whole shared service without any regionalization happening. So we've done it. She's done it on her own, and we're saving $400,000.
Well, we're going to get to that next. Okay, while Jimmy switches that over, I just want to reiterate that we are moving forward. There are amazing things happening at Pinelands in the midst of a pandemic, and that is an attest to our amazing admin team, to our dedicated teachers and staff, and to a very progressive and supportive Board of Education. So once again, I thank you. One of the things that we're going to be needing to continue to move this district forward and continue with the high expectations that we've set is consistent leadership. As you can see, since 2009, Pinelands has had an array of superintendents. Stated earlier, I said it takes 3 to 5 years to implement change. In many cases, our superintendents aren't even staying that long. We need consistent leadership. We need to keep moving forward. So what are the next steps? We are never going to remain stagnant, as mentioned in the presentation. We are returning to in-person learning. We are hoping for 100% by September. We're going to be expanding the student success team that's been created this school year to personalize learning for all students, to fill in those gaps that may exist due to COVID. We have to continue to improve in our math department. We want to expand workforce options to our students, and we will continue with high expectations. That is not going to change. And then I'm going to close with this quote. We cannot become what we want to be by remaining what we are, excuse me. So once again, thank you to the Board of Education. And if you have any questions or comments, let me know.
Thank you, Dr. McCauley. At this time, anyone for board forum? Hearing no one, we can move on to new business. And Mr. Brown, do you want to speak to our anonymous correspondence?
We can't hear.
I can't hear either. Yeah.
In regards to the bogs, it's been the direction of the Board of Education to form an ad hoc committee, which will be meeting and reaching out to stakeholders, and hopefully collaborate with those stakeholders so we can work with some other municipal agencies who are involved, including the county and the township. The purpose of the ad hoc committee is really to be able to move in a efficient and expeditious way, come up with an action plan for the Board of Education, make some recommendations, collaborate with legal counsel, with the engineer, and then bring it back to the board and bring it back to the public. So the public is really informed as to what the board's plans are, but also the committee will be meeting with public members too, stakeholders. So I encourage any public members who have questions regarding this process to reach out to the superintendent, the business administrator. They will be working, coordinating with the ad hoc committee so that we can really get a real sense of what the public's desires are and also some support from the public as we move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Donio. Moving on, old business. That's all there is. Residents forum, agenda items only. Board policy 0167 encourages community participation in every meeting. However, the board requires that the public respect a reasonable time limit when commenting on agenda items. Anyone from the public?
Can you kindly state your name?
Hi, yes. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me?
Yep.
My name is Janine Dudas, my husband Charles, we're Little Egg residents. We came tonight for a couple of reasons. Initially, we came to hear about the budget and see if there was anything in the budget pertaining to the bogs. But Mr. Brown let us know that there was going to be a discussion or there was going to be some information given about the bogs. So I guess could you perhaps explain a little bit more? I don't know, who will this ad hoc committee, like what types of members and attorneys, engineers, who will?
So it will be members of the Board of Education who volunteer to be on that ad hoc committee. They'll be reaching out to stakeholders. So I would suggest if you want to be part of that communication and discussion, absolutely leave your name and contact information with the board secretary, the superintendent. They will be able to meet on a more frequent basis than the Board of Education may be able to do so under the Open Public Meetings Act, which requires certain notice and other requirements to move in a much more efficient and expeditious way. Getting information. Board's already received information from engineers as well as their attorney. We've had some discussions with these other municipal entities. But this is really about reaching out to stakeholders, understanding your concerns, your desires, your needs, getting it back to the board, and then turnkeying that to try and get some real action on this issue, which has been around for a while. So that's the whole idea behind that.
Many years, yes. So have we made a lot of progress? What type of progress have we? Obviously, you've been involved, and we've had some communication with Dr. McCooley and Mr. Brown. I just don't know if I feel that we've made, a decent amount of progress. So I guess the fact that there's going to be a committee would be a good thing. It's been a lot of years. Like the reason we came initially was for the budget. We didn't know if there had been money set aside to repair the bogs because it's been a concern and it's been an issue for many years, as long as we've lived here.
I'm a little hesitant to characterize the progress that we've made because just being candid, and I'm not being glib or anything along those lines. Whenever you get attorneys involved, things move a lot slower than they ought to. So this whole idea of that ad hoc committee is to help move that forward with our stakeholders and with our other municipal entities to try and really get a plan in place to address this situation, which takes into account the concerns of the community. And that's really the whole idea behind it. So I would suggest you probably can get a lot more information either once the committee's formed and they start having their discussions, absolutely as a stakeholder. That's the idea behind this.
Because I do know there is still very much public interest in what happens with the dams. We hear it all the time, and as you can see, it's the longer we wait and the longer we don't do something, it really is choosing the route for us because it gets more and more, it might be not being able to go back in the other direction. So I think it really is something that needs to be done timely. Anyway.
There's no disagreement here.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Davis.
Anyone else from the public, Mr. Brown?
Nobody else present? Phil, anybody online? The internet has nobody for us, Mr. Williams. We can continue.
I'd like to move on to committee reports. Recommend motion to approve the instructional items A1 through A7. Can we have a motion?
Motion?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I just have something for the good of the cause. Is there any way, I know there was some updates to the policy, some revisions that you did explain in the video update. Is there any way in the future that maybe those changes or amendments can be bolded in the links that we get to open so we can easily find them so we don't have to anything? Is that possible from the village?
Policy updates. Yeah, I mean, we can absolutely, you want them in red, any revisions that are made.
However, I mean, for a while there, we were doing
Yep,
it that
I
way.
think when Kelly was doing it, we did it that way. But yeah, we can do it that way.
I mean, it wasn't only this, but I think it was some contracts too. It would just make it easier so we don't have to go hunting on it.
Yeah, sure. Okay, no problem.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. Chambers.
Okay, let me just get to the vote there. Hang on. All right, roll call vote. Mrs. McVeigh?
Yes.
Mr. Dalio?
Yes.
Mr. Rossetti?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Ms. Chambers?
Yes.
Ms. Paklakua?
Yes.
Ms. Palladino?
Yes.
Ms. Hannadel? And Mr. Bartlett?
Yes.
Motion carries.
B, personnel. Do I have a items B13?
Second?
Are there any questions? Okay, roll call vote. Mrs. McVeigh?
Yes.
Mr. Dalio?
Yes.
Mr. Rossetti?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Ms. Chambers?
I'm just going to abstain on 6A and 6B this evening. Everything else is yes.
Abstentions are noted. Thank you. Ms. Paklakua?
Yes.
Ms. Palladino?
Yes.
Ms. Hannadel? And Mr. Bartlett?
Yes.
That motion carries.
Operations, do I have a motion for items C1 through C3?
Motion.
Second.
Are there any questions? Okay, this is a roll call vote. Mrs. McVeigh?
Yes.
Mr. Dalio?
Yes.
Mr. Rossetti?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Ms. Chambers?
Yes.
Ms. Paklakua?
Yes.
Ms. Palladino?
Yes.
Ms. Hannadel? And Mr. Bartlett?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, so moving on to the board secretary, business administrator recommendations. Do we have a motion? for items D1 through D10.
Motion.
Second,
Are there any questions? All right, roll call vote, Mrs. McVeigh?
Yes, and please, I will abstain from any bill that applies to the shared service agreement.
Okay, Mr. Dalio?
Yes.
Mr. Rossetti?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes, excluding the bills list, I have to abstain.
Noted. Mrs. Chambers?
Yes, but I'm going to abstain on bills 01488, 01488, and I'm going to abstain on 01339, 01339. Everything else is yes this evening.
Thank you. Your abstentions are noted. Ms. Pakwakua?
I am a yes with the following exception on one, the bills list. I will also abstain on the PO 21-01488.
Do you mind reading that number to me again? I'm sorry.
21-01488.
Thank you. It's noted. Ms.
Yes.
Palladino? Ms. Vandal? Mr. Bartlett?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Residents forum on any topic, please.
Bill, anybody on the internet universe for us? We'll just do as we have done in the past and wait 30 seconds for anybody who's experiencing a lag of live streaming.
And the same applies as before regarding board policy 0167.
Checking again. Bill, anything? It does not.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Brown. Board forum. Start with Mr.
Thank you very much,
Dalio.
Mr. President. Yeah, I just want to thank both presentations from Dr. McCooley and Mr. Brown. I thought they were very thorough and both were extremely amazing to me. Very thought out on the budget, and thank you again, Dr. McCooley. I really want to thank all the teachers that work here, because and this COVID is still difficult, and I know that they're doing a lot. I know we have a lot of really good teachers here in the district. I put 2 kids through this school district. I know we have a lot of really dedicated school staff. I want to share one quick story. I don't know if this even means anything, but it kind of touched me when I was over spring break. A friend of mine who lives in North Carolina went to school with him. I haven't seen him in years, like probably 30 years. And he was coming up. I'll use his name. His name is Paul Henry. And I love the guy. He's really a really nice guy. Great family. Just to see some people. So I suggested, if you want to go, just take a look at the school. It's the last time you're there. He's like, when I graduated high school. I said, well, okay. Would you like that? It's spring break. You might be able to, take a look. And he says, would you do that? I'm like, I could ask. So I asked the superintendent if it's possible, and she said yes. She'll ask the facilities, to let us in. He went, brought his wife and his 2 sons. And first of all, going through, I didn't see it. The photos and the pictures from past, graduating classes that are on the wall. It brought, was tears to my eyes. I'm seeing friends that I haven't seen. I see friends that have died, and I'm seeing them when we were in school. So that was moving, and it was also moving for Paul. And I just sat back. He went to his locker. He found his locker. When he graduated in '88. So all these things, the kids are seeing it, going to his chem class, Mr. Gruber's class, and just walking through the school and seeing him. There was pride there. He sat back. He had pride for his school where he went. And it's been over 30 years since he's been here, or close to it. And just to see it, the look in his eyes, and also seeing his sons walking in a place where his father went to school, you know, it kind of resonated with me. It's that Pinelands Wildcat pride. That's what really got me, you know? So I just wanted to share that. I thought it was a really touching experience for me. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Dalio. Mr. Rossetti.
I just want to say that tonight was just a very positive meeting. I mean, it just started off with like hearing how great our sports teams were. And then we learned how much money we're saving with the shared services. And then Nick and his awesome crew, you know, handling the budget. And then seeing the presentation by Dr. McCooley and all the great things she's done over the years. I just want to say thank you to everybody. I mean, it's very just proud to be here. So, and thank you to all our staff and on our teachers and administration for, you know, getting our students through this year. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hannadel.
Yeah, ditto on that, exactly. Especially the presentations were amazing. We thought it was 400,000. It turns out it's over $1 million. So that's amazing. CUSAC, congratulations, everybody on CUSAC. That's such great news. It was kind of always painful. I loved your story, Augie, as well. And thank you for all the donations to everyone. And, you know, Melissa, it was your idea when you came to us to do shared services. We hadn't thought of it. So, you know, it's all on you and the team. And the team's been amazing. And thank you to all the teachers and staff for hanging in there with COVID. You're doing an amazing job. That's it.
Ms. Palladino. Thank you, Ms. Hannadel. Ms. Palladino.
Yes, I agree with all three members that spoke already. Thank you for everything. The teachers, administration, Dr. McCooley, Mr. Brown, you guys are awesome. What Augie said about going back to the school, I mean, taking my son, going through all the hallways and showing him like the back ways to get to classes and my locker, it really does. It does give you a sense of pride. And it still rings true with my kids, and it's pretty awesome.
Thank you. Ms. Palladino. Mr. Bartlett.
Just thank you, Mrs. Dudas. I think she slipped out, but for sharing your concern. I'm sure that's just a weighty thing that we're all discussing and moving forward. And thanks to the members who volunteered to be on that committee, just to help move forward with the issue with the bog. That's certainly something that we'll be thinking through in the months to come. Again, thanks to the staff and teachers, students, hang in there, and let's finish on a great note.
Thank you, Mr. Bartlett. Mrs. McVeigh.
We can't hear.
Is that better? There we go. Mr. Williams, I'm glad to hear your voice sounds better and stronger. I look forward to having you back at meetings. I'd like to reiterate what my fellow board members have said. We do have amazing people who work here, amazing teachers, and they have been up against it for the last several years, but certainly the last 12 months with COVID. And I would like to reiterate what my fellow board members said. Just a big thank you to all of them. I had 3 children go through Pinelands. I actually have a grandchild at Pinelands now, more to come. And that pride and that excitement about being a part of Pinelands and once the Wildcat, always the Wildcat, is nice to know that continues. Great news about the clean audit. Great news about CUSAC rating us as a high-performing school. Just really, really good stuff. That's all I got.
Thank you, Mrs. McVeigh. Mrs. Chambers.
Well, there's not really much more to add. We did have some new scholarships on the agenda tonight, so that's always nice to see. So thank you to those people in the community that have, helped set that up through our administration and our guidance department. One thing I would like to add to the budget, thank you for the budget committee and working with Nick. And I'm sure Jonathan was a big part of that, and also the business office. It's a lot of time, it's a lot of effort. So I want to thank those board members also that participated in that and worked along with Nick. That's awesome. I also want to thank too, and this was actually before Nick here was on board, and I believe Melissa too. But yes, we've saved a lot of money with the shift, and that's the new health benefits program, which Mr. Brown showed us tonight was very evident. But I think it's important to note too that that came to the Board of Education back during our last negotiations period. And I want to give some kudos actually to the union because they were the ones that went out and found that and brought it. And look what it's done. It saved us a lot of money. And we're still seeing the savings every year. So I do remember that. It was a tough situation, I think. We had some people come in and present to us. But overall, I think the board went with the idea and obviously it's paid off. So I would like to give those people at that time that participated in that from the union, thank you. It's well appreciated. Seniors and the rest of the students, we're getting down to the end of the wire. I know you probably think, wow, we've got, another 2 months left, but you know what? The light's at the end of the tunnel. We're almost over this year. I see better things occurring next year, especially with, the situation with COVID and whatnot. So I think things are looking up all the way around. To the seniors and juniors, I'd like to say, enjoy your activities that are coming up. You have some proms. I believe the junior prom is this Friday night. I think it's in Manahawkin, correct? Senior prom, is that here or down in Galloway? Okay, so enjoy it. You've worked hard for it. You deserve it. And sometime along the way during that evening, thank the staff too that are there chaperoning because they work real hard and your advisors work real hard to put this together and to get it to happen. So enjoy every minute of it. And just for the one last thing, thank you for bearing with me. I know Dr. McCooley sent us an email back beginning of April. I believe it came from Mr. Henderson. We were in the newspaper because our ratings had improved on drug and alcohol abuse. So our ratings actually compared to the other school districts in the state of New Jersey. One of the things I did respond back that maybe in the next meeting or whenever you feel you can, I know it's a monumental task, maybe an update on the random drug testing policy. Okay. Yeah.
And got that from me within a day, and
Awesome.
I forgot to bring it here tonight.
Oh,
So
okay.
do you
Well,
want me
maybe
just to
next
email
time.
that to
Yeah,
you?
I would like to really, we haven't had an update on that. And I would really like to
Probably
see.
at the next meeting.
Yeah, that would be great.
Right.
Whenever. I know it's whatever you had to get together, but I think it's important that we see how that policy is working for us because the numbers showed that in what was sent out. So I think that's important for our community to see. I really do.
I apologize.
Anyway, no apology necessary. Anyway, it was for the good of the cause. So thank you. And thank everybody left. But anyway, sorry I was so long, but I think there were some things. Okay. Thank you. Be back.
Thank you. Mrs. Pakal-Kuha.
Hi, yeah, just to build on, what others have said, and my fellow board members. Thank you for our staff, our teachers, our facility staff. Thank you for the admin for leading us through this, getting everybody back. But also thank you to our students, right? Our students and our families, our parents, and the community as a whole. It's great to see still the volunteers and the donations coming through. It really is nice to have that community support and that together we can move forward. And thank you, Dr. McCooley, for taking the time to put that look back together. I have to say, it's been 3 years. In many ways, I know I and probably some of my fellow board members feel like it has been tough and exhausting at times. And you look at the list and things that you've accomplished and your team has accomplished. And, it really is amazing. And we really are moving forward in such a positive direction. It's been a long time coming for Pinelands. that's why I wanted to get on this board many years ago, and it really is exciting to see us moving forward. So thank you to you, thank you to the admin team, and thank you to our staff and teachers that are with our kids in the classroom.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Paklakuha. In closing, I would just like to say I concur with my fellow board members, and I hope that beginning next year, a lot of these things are behind us, as 2019 and 2020 have been very, very difficult on all our staff, students, and administration. I think all schools have been knocked off kilter by what has happened worldwide, and we need to get back to some sense of normalcy. With that, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor of adjourning this meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say nay. We are adjourned at 7:46 PM. A reminder to the public, the next regularly scheduled meeting of the Pinelands Board of Education is Tuesday, May 18th, executive session 5:30, public session at 6 PM. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. You have a great night.